and a commitment to serve all people are characteristics that your chief magistrate must possess. As a candidate for Chris County Chief Magistrate, I offer these characteristics to you, and I ask for your vote and your support. We're living in a crucial time. Many things have changed, but my commitment to serve the citizens of Chris County has never wavered. Whether you vote by mail-in ballot, early vote, or go to the polls on Tuesday, November 3rd, I'm Isaac Owens, and I ask for your vote and your support.
Cordials WSST, because local matters.
The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors have been proudly serving the people of this community since 1918. Service is our motto. The poor, the rich, the middle class, and all are given the best of care and attention at all times. You have the privilege to select what you want. In your time of need, contact the capable, the competent, and the dependable staff of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home who is genuinely concerned with your care. At J.W. Williams Funeral Home, you are aptly served by the proprietor president, Deacon Arthur L. Parker, who continues the traditions and values set forth by the past president, Dr. Napoleon Williams. Your announcements for the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Sunday morning program are Deacon Arthur L. Parker, Reverend Isaac H. Owens, Mrs. Alondra Wilkerson Parker, Minister Frankie Harmon, Ms. Sandra Johnson, and Deacon Earl Clark, Jr.
Thank you, and good morning, friends. We come to you this morning to bring announcements, dedications, and songs. We certainly hope that your day may be brighter after listening to our program. The family of Miss Catherine Johnson Cross of Americus, Georgia. The family of Mr. Otis Hardy of Albany, Georgia. The family of Mr. Ulysses Fullwood, Jr. of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mother Martha Harris, age 99, of Vienna, Georgia. The family of Mr. Theodore Lemon of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mr. Curtavious Lashard Butts of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Miss Winetta Alexis Hawkins of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mr. Steve Darnell Lester of Knoxville, Tennessee, and Cordele, Georgia, would like to thank their many friends for the food, the flowers, the condolences, and all other expressions of sympathy and kindness shown to them during their hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. Mrs. Catherine Johnson Cross, age 76, of 1027 West Side Drive, Americus, Georgia, died Saturday, September 19th at her residence in Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Catherine Johnson Cross was held Sunday, September 27th, graveside at the Eastview Cemetery in Americus, Georgia. Her pastor, the Reverend Jermaine Harris, pastor of the Allen Chapel AME Church, officiated. Survivors include her loving and devoted daughters, Mrs. Bertha Cross Banks and her husband, Mr. Jesse Banks of Riverdale, Georgia, Miss Elizabeth Burks and Miss Tracy Ellis, both of Americus, Georgia, Mrs. Priscilla Streeter and her husband, Mr. Travis Streeter of Houston, Texas, a devoted son, Mr. Terrence Johnson, and his wife, Mrs. Erica Johnson of Albany, Georgia, 14 beloved grandchildren, 28 beloved great-grandchildren, her loving and devoted sisters, Mrs. Clara Laster of Browns Mill, New Jersey, Mrs. Susie Johnson of Americus, Georgia, and Miss Jewel Wise of Atlanta, Georgia. Her beloved brothers, Mr. Albert Lasker of Charlotte, North Carolina, Deacon Ralph Morgan and his wife, Mrs. Geraldine Morgan, and Mr. Joe Johnson, both of Americus, Georgia, and Mr. Pete Mahone of South Carolina, a host of nieces and nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends, to include a lifelong devoted friend, Mr. Christopher Sales of Columbus, Georgia, survived Mrs. Catherine Johnson Cross, age 76, of 1027 West Side Drive, Americus, Georgia. Mr. Otis Hardy, age 65, of 509 North Jackson Street, Albany, Georgia, died Sunday, September 20th at his residence in Albany, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Otis Hardy was held Sunday, September 27th, graveside at the Vienna City Cemetery in Vienna, Georgia. Brother James Wise of the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses officiated. Survivors include a beloved and caring son, Mr. Castovia M. Jones of Cordele, Georgia, two beloved grandchildren, Javaris and Zion, his beloved and devoted sisters, Mrs. Ruby Snipes and her husband, Mr. Henry Snipes, Jr., and Miss Laverne Anderson, both of Vienna, Georgia. A beloved brother, Mr. Raymond Hardy of Savannah, Georgia. A host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survived. Mr. Otis Hardy, age 65, of 509 North Jefferson Street, Albany, Georgia. Mr. Ulysses Fullwood, Jr., age 64, of 111 Rebecca Court, Cordele, Georgia, died Monday, September 21st, at the Chris Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Ulysses Fullwood, Jr. was held Monday, September 28th, graveside at the Westview Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Elder Darrell Leggett, pastor of the Cordele Church of God in Christ, officiated. Survivors include his wife, Mrs. Willie Mae Fullwood of Cordele, Georgia, his loving and devoted daughter, Miss Adrian Fullwood of Warner Robins, Georgia, his beloved grandchildren, Marquise, Notorious, Donkivia, and Ariana, 6 beloved great-grandchildren, his loving and devoted mother, Mother Ethel May Everett Fullwood of Cordele, Georgia, his beloved sisters, Mrs. Crystal Bryant, Miss Fonda Fullwood, Miss Meredith Fullwood, and Miss Erica McKenzie, all of Cordele, Georgia. His beloved brothers, Mr. Joel Fullwood of Cordele, Georgia, and Mr. Stacy Fullwood and his wife, Mrs. Brenda Fullwood of Macon, Georgia. A beloved sister-in-law, Miss Vivian Fullwood of Cordele, Georgia. His loving aunts, Missionary Clement Jones of Tampa, Florida. Miss Dorothy Fullwood, Miss Vieira Fullwood of Atlanta, Georgia. Miss Mary Hall of Cleveland, Ohio. and Miss Eddie Mae Cooks of Cordele, Georgia. A host of nieces and nephews to include Mrs. Sabrina Smith and her husband, Mr. Larry Smith of Cordele, Georgia. A host of other relatives and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mr. Ulysses Fullwood Jr., age 64, of 111 Rebecca Court, Cordele, Georgia. Mother Martha Toots Harris, age 99, of 426 Leonard Street, Vienna, Georgia, died Saturday, September 26, at her residence in Vienna, Georgia. The funeral service for Mother Martha Toots Harris, age 99, was held Thursday, October 1st, graveside at the Vienna City Cemetery in Vienna, Georgia. The Reverend Leonard Boston officiated. Survivors include her twin sister and best friend, Mother Mary King of Vienna, Georgia. 5 beloved grandchildren, her loving and devoted granddaughter, Miss Wybette Patsy Murray, whom she raised as her own daughter, Mr. Darren Murray and his wife, Miss Lisa Murray, Miss Vita Henderson and her husband, Miss Ron Henderson, Miss Nashla Lawton, Miss LaCance Spivey and her husband, Mr. Kentravis Spivey. 15 beloved great-grandchildren, Mr. Castovi Murray and his wife, Miss Shawn Murray, Miss Shantice Murray, Mr. Jamal Murray, Mrs. Deshae Henderson, and her husband, Mr. Warren Henderson, Mr. Anthony Henderson, Mr. Michael Murray, Miss Kamari Norwood, Mr. Patrick Murray, Miss Khalees Lawton, Miss Reagan Henderson, Mr. Patrick Jolly, Miss Kalia Spivey, Miss Kamari Spivey, Miss Kennedy Spivey, Miss Caden Spivey, and a host of nieces and nephews to include 2 devoted nieces, Miss Marianne Bostic and Miss Peggy Wells, a devoted nephew, Deacon Albert King Sr., and a host of cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mother Martha Toots Harris, age 99, of 426 Leonard Street, Vienna, Georgia. Mr. Theodore Butts Lemon, age 81, of 408 Oak Ridge Drive, Albany, Georgia, died Sunday, September 27, at the Phoebe Putney Memorial Hospital, North Campus in Albany, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Theodore Butts Lemon was held Friday, October 2nd, graveside at the Pleasant Hill Church Cemetery, Hatley Community, Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Greg Williams, pastor of the Emmanuel Baptist Church, officiated. Survivors include his loving and devoted sister, Ms. Verdell Butts of Cordele, Georgia, his beloved uncle, Mr. L.C. Butts and his wife, Mrs. Esther Butts, a beloved brother-in-law, Deacon Wayward Dempsey, a beloved nephew, Mr. Rico Dempsey and his wife, Mrs. Angie Dempsey, his beloved nieces, Ms. Vanessa Brown, Ms. Cheryl Taylor, Ms. Valerie Clemens and her husband, Mr. Michael Clemens, Ms. Tish Bivens and her spouse, Ms. Yolanda Bivens, great-nephews, Mr. Johnny Taylor III, Mr. Ivan Brown, Mr. Jalen Dempsey, and Mr. Joshua Dempsey. His great-nieces, Miss Charlene Hudson, Miss Cheryl Baker, Miss Courtney Taylor, a host of cousins, great-great-nieces and nephews, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mr. Theodore Butts Lemon, age 81, of 409 Oak Ridge Drive, Albany, Georgia. Mr. Curtavious Lashard Butts, age 25, of 507 West Peachtree Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Friday, September 25th, of injuries sustained in an automobile accident. The funeral service for Mr. Curtavious Lashard Butts, age 25, was held Saturday, October 3rd, graveside at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Isaac H. Owens, pastor of the Mount Calvary Baptist Church, officiated. Survivors include his precious and adored children, little Kansas L. Butts, little Kaylin L. Butts, and Master Zion Oliver, all of Cordele, Georgia. His loving and devoted mother, Mrs. Tanya Hudson Apee, and her husband, Mr. Raymond Apee, of Cordele, Georgia. His beloved father, Mr. Curtis J. Butts, of Cordele, Georgia. His beloved grandmothers, Mrs. Dolores Rouse and Miss Charlie Mae Butts, of Cordele, Georgia. Miss Gertrude Apee, of Guam, and beloved grandfather, Mr. Will Hudson, and his wife, Mrs. Margaret Hudson, and Mr. Arnett Rouse, both of Cordele, Georgia. Mr. William Apee of Guam, his beloved sister, Miss Tiffany Dawson Johnson, and her husband, Mr. Marilyn Johnson, Mrs. Lakeisha Rogers Brown, and her husband, Mr. Jackie Brown, of Cordele, Georgia. His beloved brothers, Mr. Darius K. Butts, Mr. Ernest D. Hudson, Mr. Quavius D. Butts, and his wife, Mrs. Veranda Butts, Mr. Adrian M. Armstrong, all of Cordele, Georgia. His beloved aunts and uncles, Mr. Ricky Hudson and his wife, Mrs. Vera Hudson, of Macon, Georgia. Mr. Ardell Butts, Mr. Timothy J. Butts and his wife, Mrs. Venetia, Miss Tasha L. Gaines, Mr. Will Hudson Jr. and his wife, Mr. Rodriguez Peterson, all of Cordele, Georgia. Mr. Emmett Hamilton and his wife, Mrs. Kamisha, and Miss Angela Welch, both of St. Petersburg, Florida. Mr. Kenador Rouse and his wife, Mrs. Stephanie Rouse, Miss Victoria Hudson of Perry, Georgia, Mr. Alex Peterson of Diana, Georgia, Miss Laquita Williams Wesley, and her husband, Mr. Billy Williams of West Chapel, Florida, and Miss Makiba Cunningham of Albany, Georgia. His beloved great aunts and great uncles, his godmother, Miss Carolyn L. Butts of Cordele, Georgia, and a host of other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mr. Curtavious Lashard Butts, age 25, of 507 West Peachtree Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. Miss Winetta Alexis Hawkins, age 24, of Cordele, Georgia, died Friday, September 25th, of injuries sustained in an automobile accident. The funeral service for Miss Winetta Alexis Hawkins, age 24, was held Saturday, October 3rd, at the Spring Creek Baptist Church Cemetery in Cobb, Georgia. The Reverend Travis Rush, pastor of the Spring Creek Baptist Church, officiated. Survivors include her precious and adored children, Master Zion J. Oliver, Miss Kansas Butts, and little Kalia L. Butts, all of Cordele, Georgia. Her loving and devoted parents, Mr. William Hawkins and Miss Carolyn Fitzpatrick Hawkins of Vienna, Georgia. Her former husband, Mr. Todd Oliver of Cordele, Georgia. Her loving and devoted sisters, Miss Linquetta Bush of Cordele, Georgia, Miss Shanina Solomon and her husband, Sean Solomon of Unadilla, Georgia, Miss Ushery Hawkins and Miss Skylar Hawkins, both of Vienna, Georgia. Her beloved grandparents, Miss Azaline Kellogg and her husband, Mr. Malcolm Kellogg of Cordele, Georgia, and Mother Meland Hope Hawkins of Americus, Georgia. Her beloved aunts and uncles, Mr. Charles Fitzpatrick and his wife, Mrs. Lakeisha Fitzpatrick of Cordele, Georgia, Miss Renee Lester and her husband, Mr. David Lester of El Paso, Texas, Mr. Johnny Hawkins Jr. and his wife, Mrs. Nancy Hawkins, Mr. Buster Hawkins, Mrs. Liz Spencer, and her husband, Mr. Willie Spencer, and Mr. Solomon Holt and his wife, Mrs. Jeanette Holt, all of Americus, Georgia. Mr. Robert C. Hawkins and his wife, Mrs. Jacqueline Hawkins, Mrs. Frankie M. Hawkins, Mr. Willie L. Hawkins, and Mrs. Annie R. Griffin, and her husband, Mr. Mickey Griffin, all of Americus, Georgia. Mr. Leon Hawkins of Unadilla, Georgia, and Mr. Ike Hawkins and his wife, Mrs. Trapetta Hawkins of Vienna, Georgia. Her great aunts and great uncles, Mrs. Alice Gaskin, Mrs. Phyllis Williams, and her husband, Mr. Roosevelt Williams, Miss Ella May Lifthrow, Mrs. Lucille Morgan, and Mr. Lonnie Morgan, all of Cordele, Georgia. Mr. Andrew Morgan and Mr. James E. Morgan and his wife, Mrs. Della Morgan of Alabama, a host of cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends, to include her best friend, Miss Khalees Jones of Warner Robins, Georgia, and Miss Michonne Davis of Vienna, Georgia. A host of cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Miss Winetta Alexis Hawkins, age 24, of Cordele, Georgia. Mr. Steve Darnell Lester, age 37, of 906 Avenue A, Knoxville, Tennessee, died Friday, September 18th at his residence in Knoxville, Tennessee. Funeral service for Mr. Steve Darnell Lester was held Saturday, October 3rd, graveside at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Pastor Diane Dean Vaughn officiated. Survivors include his loving and devoted wife, Mrs. Kenyatta Maria Lester, his loving and devoted children, Miss Aramana Smith, Miss Samaya Anderson, Miss Lakeisha Lester, Miss Lakedra Lester, and Mr. Jeremiah Lester, his loving and devoted mother, Miss Cherie Collins Lester, his beloved father, Mr. Archie Lester Sr., and his wife, Mrs. Alice Lester, his beloved siblings, Mr. Archie Lester Jr., Mr. Ronte Lester, Miss Nikki Smith, Mr. Mara Smith, Mr. Davian Levant, his beloved grandmothers, Miss Clara Collier, Mrs. Annie Mae Collins, Minister Doris Reynolds, his beloved aunts and uncles, Mr. Willie Frank Collins Jr., Mr. Frank Collins, Mr. Greg Collins, Mr. Sababian Collins, Mrs. Ira B. Brown and her husband, Mr. Tommy Lee Brown, Mr. Chris Collins, Mr. Veronica Collins, Mrs. Shan Collins, Miss Dorothy Jean Collins, Mr. Michael Brown, Mr. Ronnie Walker and his wife, Mrs. Barbara Walker, Mr. Johnny Frank Lester, the Reverend Nikita Lester and his wife, Mrs. May Lester, and Mr. David Lester and his wife, Mrs. Renee Lester, a host of nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mr. Steve Darnell Lester, age 37, of 906 Avenue A, Knoxville, Tennessee. Again, the family of Miss Catherine Johnson Cross of Americus, Georgia. The family of Mr. Otis Hardy of Albany, Georgia. The family of Mr. Ulysses Foodwood Jr. of Cordell, Georgia. The family of Mother Martha Toots Harris, age 99, of Diana, Georgia. The family of Mr. Theodore Butts Lemon of Cordell, Georgia. The family of Mr. Curtavious Lashard Butts of Cordell, Georgia. The family of Miss Winetta Alexis Hawkins of Cordell, Georgia. The family of Mr. Steve Darnell Lester of Cordell, Georgia, would like to thank their many friends for all of the many kindnesses shown to them during the hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. May God bless each of you, is their prayer. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors serving Cordell and Vienna were in charge of each of these arrangements during the past week. And now, it is certainly with the deepest regret that we make the following announcement. Miss Martha Jewel Chives, age 68, of 512 Harold Street, Vienna, Georgia, died Tuesday, September 29th at Nevison Health in Macon, Georgia. Survivors include a beloved daughter, Miss Sandra Chives, and her husband, Mr. Antonio Chives of Unadilla, Georgia. Two beloved granddaughters, Miss Alicia Lucas and Miss Felicia Lucas, both of Warner Robins, Georgia. 9 great-grandchildren, her loving and devoted mother, Mother Ruth Chives of Vienna, Georgia. 3 loving and devoted sisters, Mrs. Ella Colbert of Deerfield Beach, Florida, Miss Hattie Chives of Florida, and Mrs. Linda Woodson and her husband, Mr. Eddie Woodson of Vienna, Georgia. 4 beloved brothers, Mr. L.C. Chives Jr. and his wife, Mrs. Gloria Chives of Port Royal, South Carolina. Mr. Willie Chives and his wife, Mrs. Anna Elizabeth Chives of El Paso, Texas. Mr. Claude Chives and his wife, Mrs. Catherine Chives of Diana, Georgia. And Mr. Wendell Chives of Woodbridge, Virginia. A host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Miss Martha Jewel Chives, age 68, of 512 Harold Street, Diana, Georgia. The funeral service for Miss Martha Jewel Chives will be held today, Sunday, October 4th, at 11 a.m., graveside at the Diana City Cemetery in Diana, Georgia. Her pastor, the Reverend David Thomas, pastor of the Evergreen Baptist Church of Pinehurst, Georgia, will officiate. United States Army veteran, Mr. Eddie Thomas Davis Jr., age 26, of 107 Arcadia Street, Americus, Georgia, died Tuesday, September 29th at the Houston Medical Center in Warner Robins, Georgia, from injuries sustained in an automobile accident. Survivors include his loving and devoted parents, Mr. Eddie and Mrs. Cynthia Butler Davis of Americus, Georgia. His beloved sisters, Miss Chevy L. Davis of Marietta, Georgia, Miss LaQuisha Davis of Americus, Georgia. His beloved brother, Mr. Flintzer Davis Jr. Sr. of Americus, Georgia. His beloved grandparents, Mrs. Annie Ruth Davis, Mrs. Fannie H. Butler, and Mr. John Butler, all of Americus, Georgia. His beloved aunts, Mrs. Dorothy Patterson, and her husband, Mr. Raymond Patterson, Miss Beverly Jones, Mrs. Cassandra Roberts, and her husband, Mr. Moses Roberts, all of Americus, Georgia. Mrs. Frances Reddick of Jonesburg, Georgia, Mrs. Pearl Robinson and her husband, Mr. John Robinson of St. Petersburg, Florida. One beloved uncle, Mr. Christopher Butler of Americus, Georgia. His beloved nieces and nephews, a host of aunts, uncles, cousins, many relatives, and sorrowing friends, to include his special friend, Mr. Chance Shaw, Mr. Alex Amid, Mr. Jaden Crosby, Mr. Quentin Blight, and Mr. Quinladen Blight, Mr. Maurice Stanford Jr., his beloved godchildren, Callie Marie Shaw and James Bernard Shaw, his Victory Worship Center family, and the class of 2013, and his Buffalo Wild Wing crew survived. United States Army veteran, Mr. Eddie Thomas Davis Jr., age 26, 107 Arcadia Street, Americus, Georgia. The funeral service with military honors for United States Army veteran, Mr. Eddie Thomas Davis Jr., age 26, will be held today, Sunday, October 4th at 3 p.m. at Staley Memorial Gardens in Americus, Georgia. Brother Warren Alford will officiate. United States Army veteran, Mr. Charlie Smith Sr., age 73, of 712 West 22nd Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. Died Tuesday, September 1st at Regency Hospital in Macon, Georgia. Survivors include his beloved and caring children, Mr. Gerald Smith of Daytona Beach, Florida, Miss Tangela Young of Dearland, Florida, Mr. Charlie Smith Jr. of Daytona Beach, Florida, Miss Alexis Smith of Jacksonville, Florida, and Miss Sonia Smith. 10 beloved grandchildren, a host of great-grandchildren, his beloved uncles, Mr. Johnny C. Daniels and Mr. Marion Smith, both of Cordele, Georgia, a host of cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survived. United States Army veteran, Mr. Charlie Smith Sr., age 73, of 712 West 22nd Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service with military honors for United States Army veteran Mr. Charlie Smith Sr. will be held Thursday, October 8th at 10 a.m. graveside at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia, with the minister selected officiating. The public walk-up visitation will be held Wednesday, October 7th from 1 p.m. until 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mr. Bryant Keith Oliver, better known as Doc, age 48, of 510 West 11th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Monday, September 28th of injuries sustained in an accident. Survivors include his loving and devoted sisters, Miss Tamika L. Oliver and her companion, Mr. Timar Crimes, Miss Demetrius L. Oliver and her companion, Mr. Roderick Paul, and Miss Teresa M. Oliver, all of Cordele, Georgia. His beloved and caring brothers, Mr. Larry Oliver Jr. and his wife, Mrs. Teresa Oliver, Mr. Lorenzo Oliver and his wife, Mrs. Lorinda Oliver, Mr. Kenneth Oliver and his wife, Mrs. Cassandra Oliver, all of Cordele, Georgia. His beloved aunts and uncles, Mr. Bobby Finn and his wife, Mrs. Brenda Faye Finn, Mr. Robbie Finn and his wife, Mrs. April Finn, both of Atlanta, Georgia. Mr. Reuben Finn of West Palm Beach, Florida, Mrs. Brunelle Finn and Miss Gladys Oliver, both of Atlanta, Georgia. Mrs. Grace Jones of Vallejo, California, Miss Lena May Oliver of Adel, Georgia, Miss Alice Pierce of River Beach, Florida, a host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends, to include Deacon Raymond and Miss Linda Rollins, Mr. F.D. Lawton, Mr. Frederick Paul, the Green family, Miss Tay Tarbert and Son, and Mr. David Grant survived. Mr. Bryant Keith Oliver, better known as Doc, age 48, of 510 West 11th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Bryant Keith Oliver, age 48, better known as Doc, will be held Saturday, October 10th at 11 a.m. graveside at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Isaac H. Owens, pastor of the Mount Calvary Baptist Church, will officiate. The public walk-up visitation will be held Friday, October 9th from 1 p.m. until 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Beloved retired educator and past city councilwoman, Mrs. Eddie Ree Ross Walker, age 81, of 703 North Mayo Street, Americus, Georgia, died Thursday, October 1st, at the Lillian G. Carter Rehabilitation Center in Plains, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted daughter, Mrs. Fannie Ree Walker Brown, and her husband, Mr. Eddie Brown of Apopka, Florida. Her beloved grandchildren, Tevin, Aylin, Tiffany, Lawrence, Alexis, and Joshua. 9 great-grandchildren, her beloved goddaughter, Miss Mary Nell Morgan of New York, her beloved cousin, Miss Jacqueline Walker of Americus, Georgia, her close friends, Miss LaDaisy Sharp King of Virginia, Miss Bernice Sharp of Americus, Georgia, her beloved sorority sisters, Aroma Gamma Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, survived the loved retired educator and past city councilwoman, Mrs. Eddie Ree Ross Walker, age 81, of 703 North Mayo Street, Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for beloved retired educator and past city councilwoman, Mrs. Eddie Ree Ross Walker, age 81, will be held Saturday, October 10th at 2 p.m. at the Staley Memorial Gardens in Americus, Georgia. The public walk-up visitation will be Friday, October 9th from 1 p.m. until 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mr. William Lewis Kitchen, age 78, of 1907 Crisp Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Monday, September 7th at his residence in Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted sisters, Mrs. Patsy Vines of Washington, D.C., Miss Mary Kitchen, Miss Estella Kitchen, both of Cordele, Georgia, a beloved brother, Mr. Floyd Kitchen of Washington, D.C., his beloved aunts and uncle, Mrs. Alma Williams of Cordele, Georgia, Miss Gloria Jackson, and Mr. Walter Jackson, both of Washington, D.C., a host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survived. Mr. William Lewis Kitchen, age 78, of 1907 Crisp Street, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. William Lewis Kitchen will be announced at a later date, pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors serving Cordele and Diana will be in charge of each of these arrangements during this week. Friends, that conclude our funeral notices for this morning. And as always, we do remind you concerning our funeral arrangements planning available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. And also whole life insurance is available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. So please stop by and talk with us concerning your pre-funeral arrangements needs available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. And now for announcements. The New Poplar Spring Baptist Church of Byronville, Georgia, invites everyone to join them Sunday, October 11th at 9:45 a.m. via conference call. The call-in number is 253-993-3761. 253-993-3761 as they celebrate the 1919 Pastoral Appreciation for the Reverend Johnny Dean. Dr. Alicia Ritchie of Indigo Life Communication and Cooperation will be the speaker. At 12:30 p.m., they would have a drive-by celebration to honor the Reverend Johnny Dean, gifts and words of appreciation. Again, the New Poplar Springs Baptist Church invites everyone to join them Sunday, October 11th at 9:45 a.m. via conference call. Please dial 253-993-3761. And also at 12:30 p.m., they would have a drive-by celebration to honor their pastor, the Reverend Johnny Dean, and words of appreciation. Pastor Johnny Dean, pastor, New Poplar Springs Baptist Church of Byronville, Georgia. The Greater Morris Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church conference call scheduled as follows. Sunday morning worship at 9 a.m. Sunday morning worship at 9 a.m. Tuesday midday prayer conference at 12 noon. Thursday prayer meeting and Bible study at 6 p.m. The call-in number for the conference call is 229-329-7611. Again, Sunday morning worship at 9 a.m. via conference call, or you may join Facebook Live. Mother Lucille Shazer, Church Mother. Deacon Kenneth Smith, Program Chairman. Deacon Tommy Ford Jr., Vice Chairman of Deacons. Dr. Kim Williams, Pastor. If you're planning to vote in the upcoming presidential election, Monday, October 5th is the last day to register. The first day of early voting is October 13th. Saturday and Sunday voting will be on October 24th and 25th. The last day of early voting is October 30th. Election day is November 3rd. Please take advantage of these dates and vote. It is certainly with the deepest regret that we make the following announcements. Miss Martha Jewel Chives, age 68, of 512 Harold Street, Vienna, Georgia, died Tuesday, September 29th at Navison Health in Macon, Georgia. The funeral service for Miss Martha Jewel Chives will be held today, Sunday, October 4th at 11 a.m. graveside at the Vienna City Cemetery in Vienna, Georgia. Her pastor, the Reverend David Thomas, pastor of the Evergreen Baptist Church of Pinehurst, Georgia, will officiate. United States Army veteran Mr. Eddie Thomas Davis Jr., age 26, of 107 Acadia Street, Americus, Georgia, died Tuesday, September 29th at the Houston Medical Center in Warner Robins, Georgia, from injuries sustained in an automobile accident. The funeral service with military honors for United States Army veteran Mr. Eddie Thomas Davis Jr. will be held today, Sunday, October 4th at 3 p.m. at Staley Memorial Gardens in Americus, Georgia. Brother Warren Alford will officiate. United States Army veteran Mr. Charlie Smith Sr., age 73, of 712 West 22nd Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Tuesday, September 1st at Regency Hospital in Macon, Georgia. The funeral service with military honors for United States Army veteran Mr. Charlie Smith Sr. will be held Thursday, October 8th at 10 a.m. at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia, with the minister selected officiating. Public walk-up visitation will be held Wednesday, October 7th from 1 p.m. until 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mr. Brian Keith Oliver, better known as Doc, age 48, of 510 West 11th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Monday, September 28th of injuries sustained in an accident. The funeral service for Mr. Brian Keith Oliver, better known as Doc, will be held Saturday, October 10th at 11 a.m. graveside at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Isaac H. Owens, pastor of the Mount Calvary Baptist Church, will officiate. Public walk-up visitation will be held Friday, October 9th from 1 p.m. until 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Beloved retired educator and past city councilwoman, Mrs. Eddie Ree Ross Walker, age 81, of 703 North Mayo Street, Americus, Georgia, died Thursday, October 1st at the Lydian G. Carter Rehabilitation Center in Plains, Georgia. The funeral service for beloved retired educator and past city councilwoman, Mrs. Eddie Ree Ross Walker, will be held Saturday, October 10th at 2 p.m. at Staley Memorial Gardens in Americus, Georgia. The public walk-up visitation will be held Friday, October 9th from 1 p.m. until 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mr. William Lewis Kitchen, age 78, of 1907 Chris Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Monday, September 7th at his residence in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. William Lewis Kitchen, age 78, will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors serving Cordele and Vienna are in charge of each of these arrangements during this week. Our program this morning is dedicated to the bereaved families whose loved ones were laid to rest during the past week. The family of Mrs. Catherine Johnson Cross of Americus, Georgia. The family of Mr. Otis Hardy of Albany, Georgia. The family of Mr. Ulysses Fullwood Jr. of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mother Martha Tukes Harris, age 99, of Vienna, Georgia. The family of Mr. Theodore Butts Lemons of Cordell, Georgia. The family of Mr. Curtavious Lashard Butts of Cordell, Georgia. The family of Ms. Winetta Alexis Hawkins of Cordell, Georgia. The family of Mr. Steve Darnell Lester of Knoxville, Tennessee, and Cordell, Georgia. This election is dedicated to the bereaved families whose loved ones will be laid to rest during this week. The family of Miss Martha Jewel Chives of Vienna, Georgia. The family of United States Army veteran Mr. Eddie Thomas Davis Jr. of Americus, Georgia. The family of United States Army veteran Mr. Charlie Smith Sr. of Cordell, Georgia. The family of Mr. Brian Keith Oliver of Cordell, Georgia. The family of beloved retired educator Mrs. Eddie Reed Ross Walker of Americus, Georgia. The family of Mr. William Lewis Kitchens of Cordell, Georgia. Our program is dedicated to all of the sick and shut in, to all patients in the local and surrounding hospitals, nursing homes, and rehabilitation centers, to our beloved ministers and their devoted family members, to all retired educators, to the men and women serving in our armed forces, both stateside and abroad, to all veterans and to everyone who listens to our program on each Sunday morning. It's a pleasure for us to bring it to you. Our program goes out in memory of our past president, Dr. Napoleon Williams, goes out to my wife, Mrs. Calandra Wilkerson Parker, and my son, Jai Wilkerson Parker, to my mother-in-law, Mrs. Billy Ann Hall, my brother, retired Chief Master Sergeant Norman F. Dexter, and his wife, Dr. Gwendolyn Maxine Dexter, to my sister, Mrs. Manny Mae Johnson, better known as Sister Girl, and Mrs. Patsy Jackson, and her husband, Mr. Jim Jackson, my nephew, Deacon Kenneth Smith Jr., program chairman of the Greater Morris Tabernacle Baptist Church, our pastor, Dr. K.M. Williams, pastor of the Greater Morris Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church and moderator of the Gum Creek Missionary Baptist Association.
We hope you've enjoyed our program. Tune in again on next Sunday morning. In your time of need, contact the competent, capable, and dependable staff at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home.
Some of these days, well, I'm going to walk out and take up my stand.
Greetings, my name is Eric Bryant, candidate for sheriff of Suffolk County. I'm asking for your support and commitment on electing me as your next sheriff. A vote for me is a vote for service and protection. I'm committed and dedicated to our community. So on November 3rd, elect me, Eric Bryant, sheriff of Suffolk County.
Good character, sound judgment, maturity, social awareness, and a commitment to serve all people are characteristics that your chief magistrate must possess. As a candidate for Chris County Chief Magistrate, I offer these characteristics to you, and I ask for your vote and your support. We're living in a crucial time. Many things have changed, but my commitment to serve the citizens of Chris County has never wavered. Whether you vote by mail-in ballot, early vote, or go to the polls on Tuesday, November 3rd, I'm Isaac Owens, and I ask for your vote.